Welcome to another episode of Value Seller Talks with Deepak Bajaj. Today we have the honor of hosting Mr. Lloyd, a distinct technology leader based out of beautiful country which is South Africa. With close to 3 decades in the technology industry, Lloyd witnessed the entire life cycle of technology evolution. Other than that, he is working religiously in uplifting the local community in Africa and part of various initiatives which is happening across the African continent. As a great speaker, leading various tech events and always be a global center of attraction. So welcome, Lloyd.
Thank you, Deepak. It's an absolute pleasure to be part of your podcast today, and thanks for the kind words in your intro.
You deserve it. You are doing a marvelous job, and thanks for your time.
It's a pleasure.
Lloyd, as your contributions, your journey is very impressive, and the list is really long. But we would like to know you as a person first.
Okay, thank you for that. Look, I mean, me as a person, I believe that I'm a simple guy, a regular folk, honestly. I love seeing people happy. So I use my humor and jokes, to make people happy. So that's actually, at the center of, what I love, to do. I love people and I like to really see them happy. So about me, I was born, a couple of years ago. As you can see, my face is almost entirely white. Back in northern parts of, South Africa, in a place called, Sleting village, in an area called Mphahlele. So, my last name is Mphahlele and Mphahlele. So now if I didn't, join this technology stream, I'd probably, be a chief over there, somewhat. So I grew up in a place nearby called, Lobakhomo, which is a township. And that's where I attended, both my primary and secondary school. So in a nutshell, that was sort of like, my, upbringing. Yeah.
And that's also, you make a very right connection with the name and your surname. So,
Indeed.
and being a 3 decades in the technology industry, so how you experience and how you enter into this technology space?
Yeah, look, it started a long time ago. I went off to study electrical engineering all those years. I think it was around 1996, thereabout. So I was fortunate enough to be granted a bursary by one of the top telcos in South Africa, back then. And I think, as part of the conditions of the bursary, I had to do some experiential training, which landed me in the technology space, particularly, the transmission network area of, the networks domain. So for the longest of time, I spent my time there as a transmission specialist, doing field work, maintenance, and so forth. And then somewhere down the line, later in my career, I did change jobs from, this company, I think about 8 years after, on, and joined another big, telco, which is a mobile operator, in South Africa, where I started off as a specialist, and then somewhere down the line, I pivoted into management, where I acquired additional skills in other areas of technology, in the network, IT, and information security spaces. So all in all, I have about 27 years of experience in the industry. I've had the privilege of being in both the fixed and the mobile, environment with what I've told you, my trajectory through, my career. before joining MTN in 2019 until now. And I mean, it's been an exciting journey full of learnings and, really gaining a lot of experience and growth.
Yeah. And the name which you have mentioned is a giant over here, and the innovator in the telecom space in the Africa.
Indeed, indeed.
And that happened with the leadership of yours and your peers as well.
Correct. Yes.
Technology is a very wide and very dynamic. So any experience which you want to share with us, which right from your journey, which you haven't able to forget and which makes you excited as well.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. I mean, in the previous question, I did give you my experiences of when, I got off the blocks when I joined, the industry. I really started right at the bottom, which has helped me to really grasp, the fundamentals and understand how technology and networks, operate, particularly in the space that I found myself in the transport space. Because if you think of, the radio access network, you think of core or any other platform, that's delivering services to, the customers, has to go through the transport network. Therefore, invariably or inherently, as a person or a specialist technician engineer in that space, you have to understand how these other areas, work. So that was some of, the first experiences really that are, influential in shaping, my career. And I did indicate that somewhere, down the line, I pivoted into the management, but still remaining in, the technology side of things. And the big difference between what I was doing, say, as a subject matter expert and now as a people leader was the element of people. Because then there would be a problem, they would reach out to me as an engineer, and I will get into understanding the issue and make means to have the problem addressed. But now I needed to then use the people to execute my work. And I think being in leadership invariably challenged me to think differently, because I had to really learn how to do what I used to do as an engineer, but then through the people. So that has also played a big role in shaping who I am today in this career.
Right, very well said. And my next question is also related with that. That as a busy personality and as a team leader, management expert, so how you ensure that your teams remains motivated and as well as productive, especially in the complex scenarios and where the customer expectation is rising day by.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So human beings are not machines. Okay, I know that at times we try to emulate the machines, but we are humans. So to answer your question, I think as a start, there must be a human connection between the leader and the people that they lead. That's very, very important to me, at least. Because once this is in place, then there's an opportunity for trust to be established, which is key, for successful teams. And then in order to establish trust, the leader has to be seen to be trustworthy. Okay. So the things that you say have to match the things that you do. So you have to be seen to be authentic, in other words, So I believe once you have all of this, in place, because most of the people that I've had the privilege of leading they are very talented, in many ways. So they don't need to be told on what to do. So they just need to know that they've got someone who's got, their back, and then, they can trust them. And this sort of like, help inspire them to go and achieve, big things, knowing the leader is right behind them through successes and failures, equally.
Right. Very well said, because the important message that we are connected with humans, and the human
Yeah,
connections are has to be prosper every day, and they have to follow you, and that will only led by the examples.
indeed, indeed.
Right. I'm always, surprised and eager to know that in your busy schedule, how you foster innovation and how you keep yourself abreast in the technology advancement.
Yeah, look, I mean, innovation is an interesting thing, right? So to me, innovation, if I were to define it, is say an organization introducing new products or solutions that add value to that particular organization. Okay, so in my books, to be an innovative company by design, or to be seen to be innovative as a company, you need to embrace or have a solutionist mindset, to the problems that are being experienced by your customers. So looking at the problem and thinking of ways to remove or address those problems, for a customer. So the organization needs to structure itself in such a manner that it has agile, processes that allow rapid testing and releasing of this particular product and solution into the market, considering that we also operate in a highly competitive, environment. So that's what I can say about this particular point. Yeah.
Very well articulated. Thanks for bringing it up. Uh, Now, as we all are surrounded by technology, we are connected with the technology. So we would like to understand that how do you envision this emerging technology, especially like AI, machine learning, and so on and so forth, which is coming nowadays every day, evolving within the industries, and what potential impact could they have?
Yeah, I mean, these are big buzzwords. I think they've been in our vocabulary now for quite some time. And I think we are starting to see, or we've seen some of, the value delivered by the use cases, related to AI and, and machine learning. So if you ask me, I think that, the opportunities are endless, and that, in a way that we deploy these technologies, it must be in a manner that delivers business value. Because, I mean, we can go and try a lot of things which can just be seen as mere experiments that, do not deliver much of business value. Because at the end of the day, we have to match this level of innovation with delivering value for our customers, as well as, the business itself. So looking at, the space where I am, if we take, say, the area of network, um, and you look at, AI and ML, they can go a long way really in reducing, say, operational complexity and streamlining, the manual and rudimentary processes that still exist in most of, the organization. For example, one of the key use cases, we can look at, if you look at the operational environment, is the fault detection correlation and resolution. I mean, ordinarily, the network is a big place, and having a fault and knowing exactly where it is can be a daunting task, while also trying to meet, the SLAs and all of that of, our customers. So AI and ML can play a big role in significantly reducing, say, downtime and improving overall customer, experience through, if you look at ML, learning the patterns, in the network, and then having AI, taking corrective, actions through some of, the predictive analytics models, and so forth. On the customer end as well, and I'm sure you've heard about, chatbots, which are a great example of what, AI and ML can do to really improve the customer, experience, right? So chatbots, for example, they can rapidly address customer queries and significantly reduce the time, that these particular customers could have, say, ordinarily spent in a long queue at, a customer walk-in, center. So these are just, some of the examples, that, AI and ML, can bring value.
Yeah. And with the now the introduction of 5G, this is more and more data centric stats, and the data centric decisions are making with this help of these technologies on a real time basis.
Yeah, through that. And I mean, it can be incorporated in some of, these use cases, including, the private 5G cases, for mines, for agricultural project, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Very well said. And the use cases are endless. But we are just scratching the surface as of now. This is what the industry experts are saying.
Yeah, I think, the key thing is to take a use case, led approach, which is, preceded by identifying a problem. So that way, it's easy to show value. I mean, I just told you about, a network use case. So, it ordinarily takes you like, I don't know, 5 hours to clear a particular fault. But now introducing, the AI ML, now it's a couple of minutes, right? And I imagine the impact that has on customer experience. I mean, that can also impact, the churn rate and things like that, which then, from a business value perspective, ensures the sustainability of, that business. And I mean, with customer delight, the company gets promoted, or the customers say nice things about that particular, organization, which then brings in incremental, revenues for that particular entity. So very, very important.
Definitely, definitely. Now, if I want to take to one step back and just to understand how you think that these type of technologies will impact and create a more important impact, especially in the African continent. What is your advice onto that?
Yeah, look, I mean, in the African continent, right? So if you look at Africa, looking at, the technology there is driven mainly by need, which is the same sort of like thought process of first, identifying, a problem. Because, when you have a problem, it compels you into being innovative, finding ways to address, that particular problem. So it's more driven, by need. If you look at some of, the kind of challenges that we experience in the continent, right? So take, the mobile money or the mobile banking, for instance, as a technology is quite big, in Africa. And I mean, you've guessed it, right? It's so big because, if you look at most of, the populations across, the continent are unbanked and, don't have any formal ways of, say, moving money around and all of that. So that becomes, a technology that addresses, that problem. And then there's also the issue of connectivity. I mean, we talk about connecting the unconnected. And once that happens, I mean, it also unlocks a whole lot of possibilities and, additional, economies, and so forth. hence, the need to expand connectivity and coverage deep into, the rural areas using some of, the wireless technologies or even the non-terrestrial, type of, to networks like, LEO, to satellite that I'm sure you've seen, in the news.
Yeah. So both the things are going hand in hand, the connectivity along with the application in form of these emerging technologies will create a real boom for the people, for the whole community.
Indeed.
Most of the right now AI ML is a buzzword, right? Most of the people want to understand, but they are actually clueless. So what will be your advice to those organizations who wants to embrace AI and ML in their operations? It could be any enterprise as well.
Yeah, look, I think I did touch on it a bit from an approach, perspective. I think we have to look at, the value, for the business. Like, where is the business likely to get value by deploying AI and ML? And I've given you a couple of, of use cases. My own view is you must maybe do a correlation between where you have most problems that impact, customer experience directly, and then getting there. I mean, the chatbots are one, although, I mean, at times, because, machine learning learns a lot. So there could be some gremlins in the beginning where maybe some of the customers might not, enjoy the interaction and so forth. And then identify those areas and then say reduce the time it takes to address customer problems, the time it takes to address the network problems that also leads to customers being unhappy. So I think that is the approach that companies should consider.
Right. Thank you for again highlighting it. And most of the companies will definitely, or the business owner will definitely take that approach, which will help them to get most out of the technology. So
Yeah.
We always have seen you doing a lot of upliftment initiative for the African community. So could you please share some of yeah, could you please share some of the initiative which you have involved in this upliftment, as well as not to the community but also to the people around you?
Yeah, look, I think for me personally, I get involved. I mean, my former school, my former high school where I used to go in Limpopo, I'm part of a trust, that supports, the school in there on various, projects in the digital, space and ensuring that there's digital inclusion and connectivity and those kind of projects, but also other projects that I've gotten involved in where let's say we go and enable a community center to give connectivity, to those communities, for internet, supporting digital inclusion, but also financial, inclusion. Things like enabling them, say, to, do things like graphic design and enabling, businesses coming out of that. Ensuring that they're able to, say, prepare their CVs to apply for jobs and things like that, and even peripheral things, to someone who may not even be thinking about them, like availing, power stations to charge some of the devices, like phones, and so forth. So from sort of like a technology perspective, those are, the kind of, projects or activities that I've been involved in on the community side. And I mean, we continue looking for opportunities, because also just going and sharing, the experiences and assisting the community, some of the community members that are interested in the space on, how to get into the space and, things like that. So yeah, I do take up some of those opportunities. Sometimes I get invited to talk to, school kids and things like that. Yeah.
We always say Africa is a gold mine and full of resources, but yes, that way the human resources are actually evolving and they're embracing these type of technologies and solving the small problems, which has a bigger impact, is really commendable.
Indeed.
Right, right. And we always say, there will be the next IT hub is in Africa. Obviously, it starts from the southern part as well as the western part as well. But yeah, so how true is this statement from your view?
How do I?
What is how true is this statement? How you feel about this statement?
Yeah, look, I think, firstly, Africa is, a continent with, the youngest, population. And if you look at what has happened over the last few years in terms of improving, connectivity and, having some of the platforms in Africa has really closed, that digital, divide. And looking at some of these use cases that I've mentioned, earlier on, in Africa, I think it's drawing, the world to the continent because of the opportunities that lie here, for also offering, some business growth for those particular, organizations. Yeah, so I mean, we've seen some of the skill moving from, coming from Africa to some of, the parts globally, in the West and so forth.
Right. Very well said. And I know if we talk about Africa and take your perspective, the timing, we will overpass the timing. And but it's always great to see Africa from your eyes.
Yeah, yeah.
I would like to move on to the next part. That
Yes.
what advice would you like to give to the young professionals who are aspiring to build a career in the technology space?
Yeah, look, I think firstly, they should be driven by passion to solve some of these problems and challenges that, we've been talking about. With the understanding that technology by itself is just an enabler, okay? So they should then be willing to work very, very hard by putting in the hours to master the endeavor that they will be pursuing with the technology itself. And I think they should also, once they are in the journey, should have a collaborative mindset because at times we tend to compete where we need to collaborate, and deliberately make room for others that come after them.
And have you ever experienced the way that the education system has evolved, and they are using such type of technology and now more focus on the corporates or the professional world?
Yeah, look, I think, the educational world has evolved a lot. I mean, with a number of institutions being online and so forth, I think that has also helped, to close the gap. And we can learn in specific, disciplines of, technology as opposed to maybe the generic, engineering, teachings from, the olden days. And then I think this also helped create, opportunities, for young people in particular.
Yeah, right. And that's where the base actually has to be built and the foundation has to be built very strong.
Yeah.
Now there is a very important element which is happening, which we call it the then these are becoming entrepreneurs, or they are becoming a startups. They are opening their own startups. So
Yeah.
and there's a huge queue which is happening, across the world. In India, we have a huge startup ecosystem. Similarly, Africa is also, joining the race. But what advice would you like to give to these startup organizations, that how they can succeed in their life?
Yeah, look, I'm not much of an expert in this domain, but with what I've observed over the years, startups are very disruptive, in nature, because they're nimble. They can get into, spaces where maybe bigger organizations have left, the gaps open. So then they tend to then create that stir, in the market, and then compel, the market to change and adapt. So I would say anyone thinking of starting, a new journey as a startup, firstly, they need to establish or determine, identify, what that gap is, and then take advantage of their nimbleness, to introduce, the agility, and then make use of that, to provide value to the customers that they intend to serve. Because you may find that, it's a market that has always longed for the type of service that, they provide. But then you find that, the big entities around are not covering that, particular space. So I think there's always value and opportunity for the startups.
Very, very well mentioned about the problem statement and how is the using the technology to solve that problem statement in scale. That's where the mantra behind it. Thanks for
Yeah.
And especially like you are a benchmark for many young leaders who are entering into this leadership domain. So what have you observed that what the young leaders are making a mistake, and what type of message you want to share with them that they can excel in their leadership domain?
Yeah, look, I think, I'm very passionate about, the leadership, as you may know. So I think being authentic to me is important. Because to me, the measure of a leader is the degree at which you inspire people, to follow your lead and achieve great, results. But I think at times it can be difficult if, say, there is pressure in the system to achieve certain goals, and then we might feel the need to really use authority to try and get things done. But I think they should invest, their time in learning to be, the authentic leaders, and in the trust of the people that, they lead. And I think in that way, they've got a winning chance, because, as I indicated, human beings are not, machines. They've got all other dimensions and facets that needs to be considered when working with them.
Right, rightly mentioned. The last question from my side, in the interest of time, that we have seen you presenting at various stages as a global speaker, and you are always been a global center of attraction. How a young person can achieve that part? What they have to do to become a global leader?
Yeah, look, I think it has to be purpose, driven. There has to be something you are after. It mustn't just be a hit and miss, So I think firstly, they have to be passionate about a particular topic and fully believe, in a cause. If you've noted, in most of my global appearances, I've been talking about open and disaggregated networks, because deep inside, I fully believe that the sustainability of the networks that we have today lie greatly, in this open and disaggregation for, their evolution. Okay. So to me, having open and disaggregated network will remove complexity in the ever-growing multi-vendor networks, will reduce cost and improve efficiency. So all this combined in my books will deliver, value to the organization and best customer experience. So the advice is, find that purpose that drives you, and then go after it. And I think that is the start. Then you can take this crusade everywhere you go, because I think as people get to know you, they also link you to a particular topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, very well said. That the purpose is the key, and definitely we heard you about promoting and talking about the new evolution, which is going to be the future, the reality, not the future, very soon, right? And
Yeah.
thank you always for bringing the innovation in the space. We
It's
all
a pleasure to part.
Yeah. So thank you, Lloyd, for sharing your valuable time, insights, and experience with us. Your journey and contribution to the technology, and especially your purpose and your passion, which you have along with that, is really, really commendable and inspiring. I always say you are a benchmark to millions of people who is watching you, and the Africa. It's great to see Africa from your lenses.
Well, thank you, Deepak, for all those kind words. Really, I mean, I've gotten to work with you, in the space as well. So I really appreciate, your kind words, and it's been a pleasure being part of this podcast. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure is all Amar. Thank you so much, Lloyd. And until next time, this is Deepak Bajaj signing off.
Cheers. Thank you.